Welcome to In the Trenches, where entrepreneurs, artists, writers, designers, inventors, warriors, and leaders share their stories of doing the hard, creative work that impacts all of our lives. Let the journey inspire you to do something worthwhile, build something bold, and create your life's work. And now, your host, Tom Morkis.
Welcome back, everyone, to another broadcast of In the Trenches. I'm really excited to have on today's call Keith Perhac, who is the founder of DelfiNet, the co-founder of SegMetrics, and the co-founder of Summit Evergreen. Three different kind of projects, three different companies that we're going to talk about today. So Keith, thank you so much for being on the call with us.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so before we dive into, and I'm sure you have some other stuff going on too, it sounds like, just judging from looking at your portfolio. Before we dive into that stuff, tell us a little bit about how you got into, I guess, I'm really curious about how you got into this online marketing space, this internet, online business space, and kind of what led you to both, SegMetrics, Summit Evergreen, and DelfiNet.
Yeah, well, they all kind of grew out of each other. So for people who don't know, I've lived here in Japan for about 13 years now, and I was originally trained as developer and designer. So that's what I majored in is programming and then visual design. And I've always had an eye and an interest in marketing. So I worked here for a startup for about 6 years. And when we got acquired, I decided, hey, I'm doing everything at the company anyways. I was building the products. I was coming up with marketing plans. I was doing everything except for the one-on-one sales. So I was like, well, why don't I try it by myself? Like, why don't I go out and try it on my own? So I got my first client, then I got my second client, and started working with them. And so actually my first client was Ramit Sethi at I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And you could not ask for a better first client because not only was it being thrown headfirst into the whole marketing world, but this was also when he was really just starting to grow. So I got to learn so much about how to market this stuff, what the marketing world is like, and then also run it essentially breakneck speed for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, I was gonna say pretty impressive first client. What did you do for him in the beginning? I'm sorry to take us off track, but I'm really curious.
No. It informs the rest of what we'll be talking about. But it's interesting because I got hired originally as a front end designer. So the idea was that he needed a lot of split tests done with welcome pages, with opt-in forms, with that kind of stuff, and he needed them done very quickly. So I started doing that. I believe it was like maybe a month later, a couple weeks later, we wanted to do a webinar. So we started doing webinar technology, and then we started building out contest technology, and we started building automation technology for his sales funnels. And it was essentially, he was a bootstrapped marketer, and I was really the first person, maybe not the first, but one. I came in at a point where he had a lot of shoestrings, just everything tied together with shoestrings. And so we came in and we started building systems, automated systems, and just good funnels to turn his marketing into more of a machine than someone goes in and fixes this every day or every week, right? So that's really where that came in. So I learned a lot about not just what the marketing world is like, but also the strategies, and we came up with strategies together and that kind of stuff. So,
wow, that's incredible. And how did you find him, or he found you?
So actually, we have a mutual friend, Patrick McKenzie. So Patrick is pretty famous in the online startup world, and he used to live next door to me for about 10 years, something like that. And I told Patrick had been trying to get me to quit my job forever. And when I did, he's like, hey, this guy Ramit is looking for someone. I was like, I have no idea who this is, but he looks awesome. And that's how it got started.
That's awesome. So you did that. Then what came next? And I guess you said you were doing that for a few years, or how did that work out?
Yeah, we did that until January of 2015. I think February was technically our last month, but we did that for a long time. And during that, we really just built up the company. So we had other people come to us, we got referrals, we got introductions, and just more and more people wanted to build out technology for their marketing funnels and wanted to understand how marketing funnels work, because it's there's this huge push right now to go from this launch model, which is like we have one big launch a year. It drains everyone of their energy for 3 months. No one wants to move after that kind of thing, to these evergreen systems that you essentially throw paid traffic at them and they start turning into money. And so that's what we've really started to specialize in recently, is how do you take your launch content? How do you take that Jeff Walker product launch formula that you've been using for the last 3 years, 5 years, and turn that into something where you send in a lead and it makes you money? So it's completely turnkey.
Magic.
It is.
Awesome. Okay, so then you started DelfiNet. That was the next progression after this, and that was what? So that's pretty recent then, like in the last year or what?
No, DelfiNet was 5 years ago. So that was the company that I started when I left my old company and started the freelancing.
Gotcha.
Because I had a lot of Japanese companies, and Japanese companies do not do business with individuals. So I had to set up a official Japanese company, get a bank account, all that fun stuff.
Interesting.
So we're actually like, it would be equivalent to a C Corp in America.
Gotcha. And okay, so then you were rocking and rolling with that. When did SegMetrics come along?
So SegMetrics is actually really, really recent. So the first thing so it's interesting because both Summit Evergreen and SegMetrics are products for our clients. They come about from problems that we were having, that our clients were having. Summit Evergreen is online courseware. So people were like, all we have is Wishlist Member, all we have is Kajabi. We don't like the features that they support. We want something for our clients. And we kept building out the software over and over again. And so we're like, okay, let's turn this into a SaaS. And SegMetrics came about in the same way. So my co-founder talked to me, what was that, last January, and he said, so just a little background, SegMetrics is a tool for people who use Infusionsoft to get better reporting out of it. Because for some reason in Infusionsoft, it's difficult to even get like the amount of revenue that you make on a product, let alone how many people from Facebook actually generate revenue and all that fun stuff you need to understand how your business works, right?
Yep.
And you can do it in Infusionsoft, but you have to export all these tables and put them all into Excel and do pivot lookups and all this stuff. And it takes 5 to 10 hours every time you do a report.
Yep.
And my co-founder, he and I had worked together on a number of clients, and he's an analytics guy. And he said, Keith, if I have to do one more export and pivot table, I'm going to pull out the rest of my hair. Right. So we got together, we saw what we could do with that, and we pulled that together to a SaaS, and it's been taking off. Apparently, a lot of people were clamoring for this. So it's more than just like, oh, we just need it because we're analytics nerds, and more of really everyone wants this because they want to be able to understand where their money is coming from and if things are making money.
Yeah, it's pretty darn important. You know?
Yeah, I know,
it's
right?
Funny.
Like, who would have thought?
Well, it's funny. I feel like this is like we were talking offline before this call, and we were talking about project management software. And I feel like so project management software is one of the tougher, I guess, one of the tougher challenges to crack, like to find the perfect project management software. And I don't want to go into that just yet. But the other thing for me was also just like dashboards to see, like I know I'm making money, and I don't know how much though, and I don't know how well. And so it's really tough because I don't really have a dashboard view of like what I'm doing. And I've attempted a couple different things. The unfortunate part is I'm not using Infusionsoft. So your software won't work for me. But I'm like, that's one of like my struggles right now. I'm like looking just for good software that can show me at a glance, how is my business doing? Right. It's just funny what a challenge that is. You would think more like that would come kind of like Infusionsoft. I would assume that they would have had that to begin with as part of their platform, but that's pretty crazy, and what a great opportunity to capitalize on.
Yeah, and it's interesting because most companies, and I actually saw this with my own product, Summit Evergreen, we had original plans of putting in all these analytic tools and everything. And unless your tool is meant to be an analytics tool, it's such a small, it's not even a blip on your radar. There's so many other things to do with your software other than build great analytics that we've actually talked to Infusionsoft, and they're like, yeah, we don't have any plan to ever do anything like this. You go ahead. So
There you go. Great opportunity.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay, so then Summit Evergreen. How old is that? Does that sit somewhere in between?
That's a good question. I believe it's 2 years old now. I
Okay.
think it'll be 2 years old in March was the official release date. Um, but that's been growing very well as well. We have a lot of, it's always fun when you get your first handful of customers that you have no idea where they came from. Uh, and we've been getting that for about a year now, which is wonderful.
That's
Like for a
awesome.
while, it was all people we know and very like referrals, or people were promoting us and we knew, oh, this person came from this affiliate. But now we get 100% organic leads. It surprises me how much it's growing. Like, to be
Interesting.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that, I guess. That might be a good place to start. Give a little background. Where does that sit in the marketplace? So I see where your software for Infusionsoft does. You
Hmm.
mentioned Kajabi and Wishlist Member, I believe. So
Yeah.
like why is this different? Why would I choose Summit Evergreen versus some of the other stuff that's out there?
So the there's two camps of really online courseware, and one is the WordPress camp where it's a plugin on top of WordPress, and then there are the we'll call them fully hosted ones like Kajabi or Udemy or Skillshare, I believe, and stuff like that, right? And the WordPress ones are good for people who are just starting out. They have a lot of issues that people don't realize when they're starting because it's built on WordPress. So you get all the WordPress issues for free,
Yep.
right? It's essentially
Yep.
what it is, right? Um, so you need a good host. You need a host that's going to update WordPress. There's just a lot of maintenance that goes into that. It's very good if you're starting your first product and just want to have some membership site to have people come in, right?
Yep.
But where it falls down is when you have two products or three products or four products, or you want to talk about lifetime value of customers, it gets really kind of hairy, right? Because it's hard to do multiple products, it's hard to get them all connected and related, it's hard to do analytics on how people are using your software, etc. And so that's where something that is custom made for membership sites, something like Kajabi and Summit Evergreen, um, really shine. And the difference between us and Kajabi, I think, and we actually have an entire page called Alternative to Kajabi, which is I believe, our number two traffic generator on the site, which is pretty cool. Um, but the main difference that we see is really with Kajabi, you're kind of locked into their way of doing things. And we originally tried that as well. And then we started having customers who are like, well, I use Infusionsoft. I want it to track through Infusionsoft. Or I use Entreport or Constant Contact or all these things that they wanted really deep integrations with. They really wanted to customize their their experience, right? And so
Right.
Kajabi was trying to hit, I guess, mass market appeal, right? Which is smaller people who are not doing, they only have one or two products, maybe probably just one. They don't care that much how it looks. It can look very generic, as long as they can get it out there and start selling, right? And we're targeting people who have multiple products who, I mean, to be honest, who know what they're doing, right? And so we have full customization. You can completely customize your themes. You can use whatever CRM you use, whatever checkout system you use, etc. We integrate with your existing sales process, right? Because to our customers and our clients, that was the number one thing that was important. They didn't want to redo their entire sales process just because they're switching customer platforms.
That's awesome. And makes it really compelling. And so I guess in that context, then you guys host it as well, or is that
Yeah, so
how does that?
it's a complete SaaS. So you sign
Awesome.
up, it's built on servers in the cloud, load balancing, bug fixes, all that fun stuff, just right there, right?
Was this part of the solution that you created for Remit? Uh,
Um, Kind of, sort of. It was definitely inspired by it. The code itself, the what we built is completely separate, and we actually had a different because I'm very wary about that kind of stuff because I want to protect my clients. I want to protect my customers. I'm always very, um, I don't want to say gun shy. I'm very conscious of how the consulting influences product development, right?
mm-hmm.
And so we actually hired a different company to build it all just because I didn't want a single connection to anything that we had done for Ramit in the past.
Yep.
Just because I respect Ramit, I respect what he's doing from a business standpoint, and I can see someone saying, well, this looks exactly the same as what you built for me. Was I paying you to build a SaaS? And I wanted that to be very, very different. And it was actually more of, we had been contacted by other clients after Ramit to build similar things. And those we also built from scratch. So essentially, we had built the same system 3 or 4 times at that point from scratch each time. And that was at the point where we were like, okay, we really need to turn this into a SaaS because I'm tired of building these things.
And that's what I meant. In particular, like, was this like, was the I guess the impetus to build this thing stemmed from client work?
Yeah, both of them. Yeah, all the products that we built have stemmed from client work, which is a great way to get that MVP and a great way to kind of validate that idea, right?
And you're a developer, right?
Yes. So yeah, I've been a developer for many years now.
And so so that that's it's interesting. So yeah, it's kind of like obviously the 37 Signals type story.
Mm-hmm.
They're just kind of scratching their own itch, so to speak, when they create their software, and then the software kind of takes off and becomes kind of the focal point. Has that been the case for you?
Yeah, it's not the focal point yet, just because we have so many clients right now that it would. At some point, the software will become the focal point. It's just not yet. And we'll probably continue doing client work even after the products eclipse it, only because A, I love my clients, and B, the ideas that I'm able to get from working with clients are so valuable, right?
Yeah.
Like, they come up with such difficult problems to solve, and when they have a difficult problem to solve, that someone else will also have that problem. And when you're running a product company, people will come to you with things that they think you can solve or questions that they have, but no one's going to come to you with the really, really hard problems that are key to their business unless you're consulting.
Yeah. And so I guess this is interesting. So when you started out with all these, were you the, lead developer? Did you develop these yourself? How'd you go about actually building these individual pieces of software?
Yeah, so Summit Evergreen, like I said, we hired someone else to start it, and then I and my team have taken over development for the last year and a half, 2 years. And then SegMetrics, we actually did as a challenge to ourselves. So myself and the team built it, my team built it, and we built the first version in 40 hours.
Jeez, nice.
So we had 2 weeks of, I think we had a week or two of downtime between a lot of client work, and I said, hey, we got some downtime. We've been wanting to get this out. Let's try it. And so we just went at this huge pace and hammered it out in about a week.
That's awesome. So, I mean, I think, this is one of the, I feel like if I had a superpower, I wish I could code, and I could start doing this, because I feel like, it's one of those kind of fortunate, advantages you have to be able to, one, manage teams, like when you hire them to build the software, and then two, of course, be able to do it yourself or manage a team of other programmers. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? Like, if that was instrumental, or if you think that really that's just probably me just making excuses and I need to find a technical co-founder.
I think it's a grass is greener thing.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that I can jump into any idea that anyone has and build out an MVP in about a week, right?
That's awesome.
I can proof of concept, I can build that out in about a week. That's what we specialize in. The downside is I know I can do that, so I never think about whether I should, or I never think about if that's the best use of my time. So what happens, and it's interesting, Rob Walling talks about this a lot as well, when you're a technical founder or a technical co-founder, you like coding, you like programming, and so if you have a choice, you will work on the code, because there's always code to work on. Because you have an excuse. You're like, oh, I can do it faster because I know exactly what needs to be done, and I'm just going to hop in for 10 minutes, an hour, or whatever, right? You're not focusing on the business. When you're not technical, you don't have that excuse, right? You can focus on the business because you can't do the technical stuff. You have to delegate that, which is what a technical co-founder should also be doing once the product's built. They should be delegating it, right? But because they're so, I say they, me, we're so interested in it, we want to jump in and do that ourselves, even though we should be delegating it so we can work on bigger problems or marketing problems or any of the myriad other things that come up when you have a product, right?
I completely agree. I mean, conceptually, I agree. So I haven't gotten to that point yet where I'm like, when I get I do eventually want to get my feet wet in software and start doing that, because I'm like, I think there's a huge amount of value in there. But a lot of what we do is just kind of creative agency type stuff right now. So it'll be interesting when and if I ever transition to that. So then I'll have to get you back on the show to talk more about that in particular. But for right now, I'm curious about like kind of where you started and this idea of kind of setting up these evergreen sales funnels. I get the launch process. We do that a lot. In fact, when we do the book launches, I mean, it's fundamentally the same thing, right?
Yep.
The product launch formula type thing. Automating book sales funnels is, we try to put in those sales funnels to a degree and automate that as much as possible. But I'm curious, what are the main takeaways from creating an evergreen sales funnel? Like what goes into it? And I guess, how is it different than a big launch? Like, how do you have to like think about it structurally to make it happen?
So the two core things, and it's interesting because some of the things that you need to think about are very similar to a standard launch formula, but there's much more you have to think about it. And the main thing you have to think about is your performance measuring, right? Because when you have a launch, it's very easy at the end to say, okay, we had 20,000 new leads, we made $800,000, let's say, right? And that's a very easy number that you can say, at this point we had X, at this point at the end of launch we had Y. There's our number, right? And that's not a great number because it's too high level, but at least it's a number and you have a general idea of how you did. When you have an evergreen funnel, it's very difficult to do that because people are coming in at all times. There's no start and end for you to really measure, right? So you need to be able to measure a lot better than you do during a launch, right? It's no longer a nice to have, it's a necessity if you want to improve that evergreen funnel and you want to make sure that you're making more than you're spending.
Right.
Because there is an issue. So let's talk about kind of lead source, and this gets a little bit in the weeds, but I think it's very important.
Yeah, let's do it.
So when you have a launch or you have an evergreen funnel or you have any sales process, you have a lead source, right? You have somewhere where your leads are coming from, and you want to know how much money those people are worth, right? So this is especially important when you're doing Facebook ads or Google ads or something similar, where Facebook ads cost you, let's say, $5 to get an opt-in. Okay. Are you able to monetize that person beyond that $5? And that's the core of your entire business, is how much does it cost to get an opt-in and how much money do they make you in the short term and the long term? So Facebook is really easy. It's really good about telling you the short term. I believe the cookie's 30 days. So they can tell you your first purchase in 30 days, right? If you have it hooked up correctly, which sometimes it's not, sometimes it's much harder than it sounds, but ostensibly it can tell you that, right? Now there's lots of problems with like cookies double firing and single firing and not firing, and it's a whole mess, but ostensibly you can tell that. The problem is the biggest value that people get out of their lists is recurring revenue, right? Which is a customer purchasing again, or a subscription or something similar, where the bulk of the revenue does not come in that first 30 days. It comes a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, etc.
Right.
So tracking that and understanding that on an evergreen funnel is much more important than a launch, because it's not this huge event where you can have a start and an end. You need to be able to say, okay, of all the people who came into my funnel in the last month from Facebook, I spent an average of $5 to get a lead. How much were they worth after a month? $3. Oh crap, I'm losing money. But after 2 months, they were worth $20 per person, right? I'm like, okay, here we go. Like that's the number I wanted. Yes, it takes a little longer, but we are able to monetize them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of kicks off the whole thing. So then you can start diving in. And this is where I just start geeking out. And
Right.
You can dive in and you can say, okay, these emails are not performing as well as I thought they were. People are dropping out of the funnel here. People are having issues purchasing here, etc. Like in a launch, you really only get one chance. In an evergreen funnel, you have as many chances as you have time to send people through the funnel. So you can split test entirely different funnels and see if they perform better. You can split test different emails and see if they perform better. You can do price testing. You can do so much and get significance because more and more traffic is coming in.
So, okay, so now, and I guess this is where kind of the tech piece comes in. At the end of the day, like, it's really tough to bootstrap that, isn't it? Like, you kind of need to invest in some good software, or what are the cheaper ways you could do that, or do that on the cheap, or is that even possible?
Yeah, it's not a software thing. I mean, of course, it is a software thing, but it's not necessarily you have to invest like $10,000 in software. You have to understand how the evergreen funnel goes through, and you have to plan it out.
Yeah.
That's really the big thing. You can have a very simple evergreen funnel that's just emails that doesn't need any technology behind it other than like Infusionsoft or Drip. I love Drip, by the way, or something similar to that. But if you want to go the next step, yes, you need some technology, and most technology all hooks together. So we recommend quizzes, which you can use. I believe it's called Dialogger for that, which works really well. And that's great for initial opt-ins. We always recommend evergreen webinars. So something like Stealth Seminar, Easy Webinar, which lets you set up a webinar to recur on a certain day. So you send out emails that are like, hey, check out my webinar on Tuesday. And you don't have to be on that webinar, but it's a countdown. It's got that scarcity feel, and it's got a timer so everyone feels that they're part of the launch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is expiring sales pages. So you have a sales page that has a special offer, like $100 off, $200 off, or this product is only available now kind of thing. And the technology issue is hooking that all together so that people get a single unified experience of, I go to the webinar, it says 5 days left on this offer. I go to the sales page, it also says 5 days left on this offer. Tomorrow, they all say 4 days left. And tying it together is the technically challenging part.
Right.
But the tools we use is all off the shelf. Like it's a way of thinking about it to understand that people are going through the funnel and just making sure they have a solid experience all the way through.
Awesome. I love it. What, when you say think through it, like, I guess, how do you think through it differently in that context, like an evergreen funnel, than you do a launch? Like, and maybe that's too broad. Maybe it comes down to it just depends on the product.
The main thing is at a launch, everything is timed because you're sending out a broadcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for an evergreen, you need to look at how you tie it together so that you are tracking people through the whole thing with regards to that time and with regards to what choices they make during the funnel, right? So a lot of times a launch is very linear, right? You get email 1, you get email 2, you get email 3, and then you email out the sales email.
Right.
Sometimes people do something a little bit different where they'll send out an email to people who haven't opened before. So we've sent out 3 video emails. They haven't opened up a single one. Let's send them a special email, or let's invite them to something special. So it's very easy to do that when you're doing a launch because it's a broadcast, right? You just segment your list and you send it out.
Yep.
So how do you do that when it's automated? So you need to plan in advance and say, okay, we're watching these people for these signals. And if we don't have this signal, then we branch off and do this thing, right? Yep. And that's where 90% of the evergreening process is all planning. Yeah. Like the hooking up, the better your plan is at first, the easier it is to hook up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how many of these have you set up, would you say? Like dozens, hundreds?
Hundreds. Getting towards 1,000, I'm sure.
Jeez. So you kind of look at this, I bet you kind of come at it from an angle where it's just like, you just understand this stuff as soon as you start.
Yeah, and explaining it's always the expert's dilemma, right? Because it comes second nature to me at this point. Right. It's like, oh yeah, you just hook up a webinar and set it to an expiring timer that's hooked up to the sales page as well, and you track it all in Infusionsoft and just insert it into the emails. And the first time I talk to a client, they just stare at me and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, awesome. Yeah, it's really easy. It'll take about an hour. Like, so.
That's awesome. Well, except you don't say that. You say it'll take about 3 weeks.
It'll take 6 weeks. 6 weeks. No, one of the things that we talk with our clients is the planning is the most time-consuming part. Once it's planned, if it's planned well, the implementation really you can get, since we also have all these tools we've built over the years, you can get a full implementation. I think our fastest launch, we set up an entire launch and evergreening process in 10 hours, I think, from zero. Like, customer contacted us, said, hey, on Friday, we need to launch this. It was Tuesday. And we said, okay. And so about 10 hours later, we had everything ready.
Okay, so my question is, where do I get, like, have you created like a book on this subject that I can read and learn everything you've as much as I can? Or do you have any resources that somebody can come to and learn this stuff?
People keep telling me I need to put this book out. I haven't yet, just because I'm so busy with client stuff. It's like, it's that thing that is always sitting there that I want to get out more than anything, but I'm too busy building evergreen funnels for other people. Right?
You need to publish through Insert and Publishing, and we need to get that book out there.
If there was a way to get and I know there are ways to get the book out there without, while still supporting all the client work and everything else I do, I would totally be on that. Like, it's something I really want to do. People keep hitting me over the head for not doing it, essentially. It's just one of those things, right?
Yeah, it sounds like such an important thing. That's awesome. Well, I'll nag you about it and see what.
Thank you. That'd be awesome.
See what I can do to get it out of you, because I think that would be is so powerful. Do you do any blogging and share any of these insights anywhere else? Like, because I'm curious. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface with any of this. I'm just curious if there's more knowledge that people can get from you anywhere else on the web.
It's interesting. The podcasts are actually my number one way of getting that information. I'm working right now on getting a lot more of this out. I've set up some blogging stuff. Getting the 8 hours to write a blog post is so difficult for me.
Yep.
Right. And so I've started working with companies kind of like Audience Ops, or the one I'm working with is Flux Marketing, and to do essentially interview style to get out blog content. So I do a 1 hour interview once a week or once every other week, and that turns into 3 or 4 blog posts. So that's what I've been doing that with Summit and SegMetrics for those blogs, and then I've been trying to get that off the ground for my stuff as well, and I found it works really well.
Awesome.
It's really an easy way to get the content out there, as well as make sure that it's still your content, because that's the hardest problem when you're working with like copywriters, and especially copywriters from online services, where suddenly they're the ones writing it, not you, and so it doesn't have your voice, it doesn't have any of the ideas, it doesn't agree with what you think, right?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, those are definitely challenges for sure. But I'm gonna dig into more of your stuff where I can find it, and we'll make sure we link up everything we can in the show notes here. I guess one last or plug for your work. Where's the best place to send people to find out more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, so definitely summitevergreen.com, segmetrics.io, and my personal site is keithperhac.com. And actually, if you just search for Keith Perhac on Google, I am apparently the only Keith Perhac in the world. So all of my stuff comes up, even stuff that I really wish would not come up, and I've been trying to kill it with fire as much as humanly possible.
Nice.
There's still blog posts from my first, or there's still like RPG posts from my first company back in 2000. God, when was that? 1, 2?
What was it? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we did role-playing games.
Okay.
For ebooks. So
nice.
Yeah, but which would be awesome now, right? That would be, now that the iPad exists and like all these digital things. PDF had just come out when we built this technology. So there were like Blackberries and PDAs, and we were like, oh yeah, you should totally have digital books now. It was
so fun.
Great idea, horribly timed. Absolutely,
you know
horribly
what?
timed.
Sounds like you had a full recovery with the stuff you're working on, so that's good.
Definitely.
Awesome, Keith. Well, hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll make sure that everybody gets sent your way, and anybody interested in learning how to kind of create these evergreen sales funnels, check out Keith's work. It looks fantastic, man.
All right. Thanks for having me, man.
And that wraps up another broadcast of In the Trenches. If you'd like to check out the show notes, just head over to tommorkes.com/podcast, where you'll find the latest broadcast. And if you enjoyed today's broadcast, please do me a favor and leave a rating and review on iTunes. That's the fastest, simplest, easiest way to support my creative work, and it would really mean a lot to me. As always, this is Tom Morkis, and if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.